Welcome to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President Local 237 Teamsters. Today, our very special guest is Gale Brewer, Council Member, Upper West Side of Manhattan, and she is also going to be the next Manhattan Borough President. Gale, welcome to Reaching Out.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show, and congratulations on your victory this past September. And can you share with our audience a little bit about your background before being elected to City Council? I know you had service as a Parks Department employee.
Right. I mean, I have been around a long time. I have been in the City Council for 12 years. I did work for Council Member Ruth Messinger when she was in the City Council. I worked at the Graduate Center at CUNY doing research and teaching for a couple of years. I worked for a real estate company in Far Rockaway building affordable housing. I worked in the Public Advocate's Office, and I was head of the federal office for Mayor Dinkins in Washington. And then many years ago, I actually worked in for Mary Ann Krupsek when she was Lieutenant Governor under Hugh Carey. And even before that, I worked just for a little while in the Parks Department under John Lindsay. So I have been doing this for a long time.
Now, you said something interesting. You worked for Ruth Messinger when she was a council member.
Correct.
And she ended up being our Manhattan Borough President, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So you actually followed in her footsteps the same exact path, council member to Manhattan Borough President.
And I'm not running for mayor, just in case.
I wasn't going to go there.
No. Yes, and she's my mentor and my good friend.
Very good. You have been an active member of the City Council since 2002, moving from being a legislator to a borough president. Is a very different job. How do you see the transition?
Well, in the City Council, you do participate in land use decision making, and a lot of the borough president obviously is participating in the borough-wide land use decision making. So there's a similarity there. However, the big difference is I only operated in a small realm, the Upper West Side, and now it's the entire borough. I must admit my number one issue is retaining, preserving, and building affordable housing. We can talk more about that, but you can use land use to do that. The second issue the borough president works on is appointments to community boards, keeping hopefully union members, diversity, and helping them with this huge planning effort that is taking place in the borough of Manhattan and elsewhere. And obviously you work to make sure that the community boards have planners, they have people who know data, because there's so much more data coming at everybody now. And then the third issue is I call it bully pulpit. You obviously have appointments. You have appointments to the pension, to NYCERS, to the citywide school board, to the local school boards. But then you want to, my issues, I have a lot of issues regarding education. I have issues regarding quality, mental health, food sourcing, technology. I'm unfortunately interested in everything. But the main issue, to be honest with you, is the land use and zoning. And it's a big jump to go from the City Council to the Borough President in that issue alone. But I think I have a lot of years to prepare me.
Now, you mentioned something our listeners probably would want me to ask you more about. Affordable housing and making sure that land use is used for more affordable housing in New York City. Tell us your ideas on how this can be accomplished.
Well, there's two. I think preservation is as important as building new. This administration under Bloomberg has not preserved rent regulated, and I would argue hasn't preserved NYCHA housing in the way that it should either. So two issues. One is you have to really work on preservation, and what that means is that you have to have people to fight for the tenants, sometimes seniors who have hoarding issues, or you have to fight for families who are getting evicted because they don't have the rent, and we have to find a way. The state and the federal government seem to have disappeared on Section 8 or the Advantage program. They've just gone. So we have to figure out how I would take some of the money that's used for the Department of Homeless Services, $900 million, and use that to supplement rent so that people can stay in their apartments. Now, that doesn't help the 50,000 homeless. Of course, you know NYCHA better than anybody.
Yes.
You know the New York City Housing Authority. I have about 7 or 8 developments in my district. I work every single day. Amsterdam, Harvard View, Wise Towers, the Brownstones, the Urban Renewal, the Hostos, 589 Amsterdam, and I could go on. We have to maintain and keep those 180,000 units in the city's NYCHA developments maintained and repaired. And your members know better than anybody the challenges. So that answer is so simple to me to start with. You take the money that NYCHA gives to the police department and to the, in lieu of taxes and sanitation, it's about $100 million, and put it back into repairs and maintenance. I think that hopefully Mayor de Blasio, if he becomes the mayor, would do that. But so then the issue is new housing. So I would offer that new buildings need to include affordable. It could be affordable low income, it could be affordable seniors, it could be affordable for like 2 of your members or 2 teachers. There's no affordable. Every time you have an affordable housing being built, you have like 800 to 1. It's harder than to get into Harvard University to get one apartment. So we got to figure out, that's the number one issue on the street, the lack of affordable housing for anybody. So your members know better than anyone about the quality of need in NYCHA, but I can offer that new housing also needs to be built.
Now, you mentioned something that I just thought about, and you're putting the pieces together. NYCHA has about 1,200 apartments that may not be rented because they've been rehabbed and they're not being utilized at this moment. Then they have a number of other apartments that need to be rehabbed so that they can have these apartments rented. Now, you also couple that with the amount of money being spent by New York City to house families in hotels, which is astronomical sum of money.
Astronomical.
If we would take that money and shift it over to rehabbing and putting people into NYCHA and have the city pay that rent for the people who are homeless, one, the New York City Housing Authority would have income because the city would be paying the rent, which would be much cheaper than the hotel. People would have apartments. This way they could transition into having a steady home. Mm-hmm. And we could rehab the other apartments that need to be rehabbed utilizing some of that money. And perhaps NYCHA could afford to pay all of its bills if we had everybody paying rent and everybody, all the apartments utilized. I think that's a good way to go.
I totally agree with you. We have quite a few shelters in my district. The residents come to my office because they're not getting good casework, even though you and I are paying the cost of the casework with public money. And the owner of the building or the nonprofit working with the owner is getting $3,700 a month for a tiny little room. That makes no sense to me. Many of the individuals who are homeless simply just didn't have the rent money. There are others that have drug problems and challenges that perhaps shouldn't be in NYCHA. But there are so many who just didn't have the rent, lost their job. They could easily, and they would be welcomed into the NYCHA development. So yes, I would absolutely use that as an example. And sometimes they get SSI. Some of them are working.
How much money could we save? $3,700 a month for a room, and you could get an apartment in NYCHA for less than, say, $500 or $600.
Correct.
And the money the city would be saving, that money could be used to go to other services.
Right. My understanding is around $900 million that is currently being spent at the Department of Homeless Services for what you just described. So I would take a portion of that and use it for what I call permanent housing, NYCHA to be included.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for Reaching Out. This edition, this segment we were joined by Council Member Gale Brewer, and she is going to be the new Manhattan Borough President. Council Member, thank you for being on Reaching Out.
It's a huge honor. Thank you very much for your leadership.